Hey everybody, I'm JC from One Shot Adventures, and this channel is all about running great one-shot adventures, but also short campaigns. Well, not too long ago, I finished a campaign in one of my favorite old school inspired fantasy RPGs, Dungeon Crawl Classics, which I mostly cobbled together from several of Goodman Games' excellent adventures, which seem to always include fresh surprises, unique monsters, and memorable locations for my players. But regardless of whether you've played Dungeon Crawl Classics, you probably know one thing about it. Character creation in this game is a little unusual. Instead of carefully crafting a heroic backstory, everybody starts with a bunch of zero-level peasants. Cabbage pickers, grave diggers, gong farmers, maybe a miner with a chicken who's smarter than he is.
A chicken smarter than me? Oh, isn't that a statement? I've got an intelligence of 5 on my character sheet. What's the chicken have?
And then the game throws them into what DCC calls a funnel adventure. And the idea is simple. Players take 4 peasants into a dungeon, and the survivors crawl out as actual first-level heroes. The others, well, they often get eaten by demons, crushed by traps, dissolved by alien clouds, and oftentimes worse fates. I love funnels, and I've had some of my most memorable game experiences running and playing in them. And I also view funnels as RPG adjacent. There's more chaos, less role-playing, and far more laughter in a funnel than in a traditional RPG setting. So I think of them as sort of the arcade version of RPGs. So today I'm going to talk about 8 Dungeon Crawl Classics funnel adventures. I've run all of these at my table, and I'll give you my honest thoughts about which ones are the most fun, which ones are the weirdest, and which ones might leave your players screaming into the void. And at the end of each review, I'll give the adventure a rating out of 5 peasant skulls. I'll warn you, however, there are some light spoilers ahead. So if you want to experience these funnels completely fresh, maybe skip this video and go hang out in the tavern with the first level heroes. But everyone else, grab your pitchforks, your farm animals, and your most expendable villagers, because here we go.
Final frenzy! Scream and fall! Level 0 beats them all! Roll!
First up, we have Creep Scrag Creep, which is basically Alien, but starring medieval villagers. The adventure takes place aboard a cursed ship called the Star of Nostro. Star of Nostro, Nostromo, get it? Every year, this ship comes into a poor coastal town and promises villagers a better life across the sea. So the PCs board the ship, wave goodbye to their families, and sail off towards a glorious new future. Except, of course, this is a trap. The peasants all wake up chained in the cargo hold and discover that the ship is actually delivering them to an evil warlock who plans to sacrifice them. And things get worse almost immediately, because when the PCs wake up, they're literally all being eaten alive by giant black lizards. Yes, characters can die in this adventure before it even properly begins. Welcome to Dungeon Crawl Classics. But once the players escape the hold, the adventure turns into a sandbox exploration of an empty ship as they try to figure out what happened to the crew. Spoiler, demon worship happened. There's a horrifying mutant creature that is stalking the decks and protecting its eggs. The tension here works really well. The players figure out right away that something terrible is hunting them, and unless they figure out a way to escape, they'll be dead within hours. The only real downside to this adventure is that it is a bit tricky to run, at least compared to other funnels. The ship has multiple decks and weird connections between levels, the map's a bit unclear, and the GM has to really know how to build tension and know exactly when to hit the players with the xenomorph. I mean, unnamed mutant creature. But if you're an experienced GM, that's no problem at all. If you're new, however, it can be a little daunting. Still, if you want a creepy funnel where peasants are hopelessly trapped on a haunted ship with an almost unstoppable monster, Creep Scrag Creep is a lot of fun. My rating? 4 out of 5 peasant skulls. Next up is Danger in the Air, which starts with one of the most wonderfully weird openings I have ever seen in a funnel. One morning, villagers wake up and see something incredible floating over their town. a massive dead creature just drifts through the sky. And as it floats overhead, gold coins start falling into farmers' fields. So naturally, the villagers say,
Is that a giant blimp monster hovering over our village and leaking gold? Or somebody go get my goat, we're gonna climb up.
and so the PCs climb up the creature's dangling tentacles and crawl inside its body, which is how the players discover they're actually exploring the inside of an organic alien spaceship. Now, the rooms inside this creature are bizarre. Some contain strange alien devices and technology. Others are basically death traps where players have about 30 seconds to figure out what's happening before some alien defense kills them. When I ran this adventure, I had players frozen solid, blasted by weird energy beams, and dissolved in clouds of rainbow-colored gas. It's the kind of adventure where one of your players will walk into a room full of beautiful glowing clouds, remark how pretty they are, and then touch one only to be instantly frozen solid and shattered. Good times. The adventure is short, you can run the whole thing in a single session, and it's packed with so many weird ideas. Sometimes it's a little too weird, which will make your players more cautious than you'd expect, but they'll absolutely know from the beginning that they aren't playing in a typical fantasy RPG. My rating, 4 out of 5 Peasant Skulls. If you've played Dungeon Crawl Classics before, chances are you've played or run Portal Under the Stars. It's the classic adventure that is included in the main rulebook. The setup is simple. Once every 50 years, a mysterious stone portal opens when a strange star appears in the sky, and villagers decide to go into the portal to see if there's treasure waiting. What follows is a tight little dungeon full of deadly traps, strange magic, and monsters that can wipe out peasants in seconds, with cool names like Sisorarog, the immortal demon snake. This guy will terrify your players and is so much fun for a GM to roleplay. The dungeon itself is small, just 9 rooms, but almost every room has something memorable going on. Statues come to life, corridors turn into death traps, strange magical devices do unpredictable things. And the adventure does a fantastic job teaching new players how DCC works. I love how the ending of this adventure seems virtually impossible to beat. The PCs have to face off against an army of 70 clay warriors.
Well, my chicken's dead and I can't count to 70, so why should I believe you that we can't just take them all?
However, if they use their brains or have done a good job figuring out the dungeon before, it's possible for them to win the day. Portal Under the Stars teaches GMs and players alike that you can't just kick down every door in a dungeon and attack everything, at least not in Dungeon Crawl Classics. It forces players to learn to experiment, think creatively, and maybe send the least valuable peasant into the room first. And while Portal Under the Stars is well designed, it is very straightforward. It doesn't have that feel, that gonzo excitement that DCC is now known for. And there's nothing in it really that experienced roleplayers haven't seen before. It's a solid choice, but for veteran RPG fans, I'd start with a funnel that has a stronger personality. So ultimately my rating is 3 out of 5 skulls for Portal Under the Stars. Next we have Sour Spring Hollow, which does something really different. Instead of a dungeon, this funnel takes place around a creepy farmstead in the Shutter Mountains, the Appalachian-inspired setting introduced in Goodman Games' The Chained Coffin adventure collection. It's a wonderful backwoods setting that I can best describe as Deliverance set in Saruman's shower. Deliverance set in Saruman's Shire. The villagers investigate a haunted homestead surrounded by cornfields, cabins, and a cursed well tied to a tragic story. Almost instantly, they find themselves trapped in a dimension that only contains this cursed farm, and they need to figure out what happened in order to escape alive. There are evil souls that haunt the place. And the tone here is fantastic. It feels less like a typical dungeon crawl in a fantasy setting and more like a backwoods ghost story. Players explore barns, graveyards, and abandoned buildings while slowly uncovering what happened to the evil family that once called this hollow home. Of course, things eventually turn violent because this is still a funnel, but the slow buildup of tension is really effective. If you want something atmospheric and spooky, instead of another dungeon to kick off your campaign, Sour Spring Hollow is excellent. My rating, 4 out of 5 skulls. Next up, we have Grave Robbers of Thracia. Now, this funnel is meant to introduce players to the legendary Caverns of Thracia setting, one of the most famous mega dungeons in RPG history. The adventure begins with villagers investigating disappearances in their jungle homeland. They discover a burial mound hiding the ruins of a lost Thracian legion. Unfortunately, that legion had access to an incredibly powerful Thracian artifact, a resurrection stone. And they used that stone a lot. Eventually, they devolved into a tribe of strange, cilia-covered, liver-eating ghouls. Now, on paper, this premise sounds amazing. Ancient empires, cursed magic, the history of Thracia. But honestly, I found this adventure disappointing. The dungeon is small and pretty linear, and many of the encounters just rely on simple ghoul ambushes. Funnels usually shine when they have a wild variety of traps, original monsters, and weird situations, but this one feels very straightforward. It's not terrible, but compared to the best funnels in DCC, it feels mundane. Personally, I'd skip this one. My rating, 1 out of 5 skulls. The Forsaken Vault of the Crimson Oracle is a hidden gem. It's a funnel that absolutely wastes no time. Within the first minute of the adventure, a kaiju-sized wizard explodes out of the ground. He kidnaps a villager and runs off. The entire village collapses into a massive underground vault, and then a demon begins hunting everyone, dealing enough damage to kill a PC every turn. That's how this adventure starts. Welcome to Dungeon Crawl Classics, players. It takes an opening that you'd typically expect to see for 10th level parties and throws 0 level farmers at it. The vault itself is fairly linear, but the rooms are so wonderfully strange and creative. One room contains a bizarre miniature marble city filled with tiny buildings and musical instruments that come alive when players interact with them. Other areas feature magical traps, strange relics, just all kinds of weird surprises. But my favorite part of this adventure has to be the Gallyjacks. These guys are some of my favorite monsters in all of Dungeon Crawl Classics. You see, there's this one room in this adventure that's filled with thousands of tiny little men called the Prize Takers. But worse, these prize takers have a custom of killing people, hollowing out their bodies, rigging them with pulleys and ropes, and riding them into battle. And so the PCs are quickly beset by several of these horrifying Gallyjacks. Now, these corpses now piloted by hundreds of prize takers, and worse, as the Gallyjacks attack the PCs, they'll try to board them, digging into their insides, killing them, and turning them into another Gallyjack. Gallyjacks will absolutely unnerve your players, and they'll probably love every second of it. This funnel is very short and can be finished in 2 hours. But the roller coaster pacing of this whole adventure is fantastic. The PCs are constantly scrambling from one crazy situation to another while trying to escape the dungeon alive. The Forsaken Vault of the Crimson Oracle is chaotic, creative, and exactly the kind of weird energy that Dungeon Crawl Classics does best. My rating, 5 out of 5 peasant skulls. And next we have Hole in the Sky, which might be the most wonderfully insane funnel in Dungeon Crawl Classics. The adventure begins when a mysterious lady in blue appears in the villagers' dreams and promises to change their miserable fate if they help her rescue an ally trapped in an interdimensional prison. So the villagers meet her on a cliff overlooking the sea. She's 7 feet tall, eerily beautiful, and when she speaks, the severed heads she carries speaks for her. What an opening. And this opening is a sign that things are about to get weird. At midnight, an invisible bridge appears over the ocean, and the villagers must walk across it for days until they reach a literal hole in the sky and leap through. And on the other side is a bizarre alien world filled with strange creatures and a massive prison that looks more like a spiny seed pod than a dungeon. Inside are monsters, traps, and a gigantic sleeping kaiju-sized titan that's guarding the prisoner they've all been sent to rescue. And remember, these heroes are still peasants with pitchforks facing all of this. While parts of this adventure can be too linear, there's lots of opportunities for players to explore their creativity from encounter to encounter. The whole adventure is imaginative, strange, and full of the kind of cosmic weirdness that Dungeon Crawl Classics does so well. My rating, 4 out of 5 skulls. And finally, we get to Sailors on the Starless Sea, which many players consider the quintessential Dungeon Crawl Classics funnel. The adventure begins when beastmen attack a quiet village and drag several villagers away to the ruins of an ancient keep. With no heroes around to save the day, the PCs, the peasants, have to do it themselves. So the villagers grab whatever tools they can find, pitchforks, clubs, maybe a rusty sword, and then they march toward this ruined keep. And right away, the adventure gives the players choices. The keep can be approached from several directions. You can climb the walls, sneak through the ruins, or smash your way in through the front door. This freedom actually differentiates this from other funnels, which can be more linear, and it makes this opening feel much less like a railroad and more like a chaotic raid on a cursed fortress pulled from the pages of your favorite fantasy book. Inside the ruins, the players find cultists. Of course, there's cultists and beastmen and hints that something far worse is happening beneath the keep. Eventually, the villagers descend into ancient crypts and discover the truth. A cult of chaos is preparing a dark ritual tied to an eerie underground ocean known as the Starless Sea. The adventure escalates beautifully from a simple village rescue mission into a full-on sword and sorcery nightmare with sacrifices, chaos magic, and one of the most memorable finales in any funnel, where the players must assault a giant ziggurat surrounded by lava and fire, hordes of beastmen, and a one-eyed chaos lord that has returned to the physical world after years of hiding. Sailors on the Starless Sea runs a little longer than other funnels. It usually takes 2 sessions to finish in my experience, but honestly, that epic feel is just part of its charm. It's just packed with classic pulp fantasy vibes. That ending feels ripped right from the pages of a Robert E. Howard Conan book, and surviving this dangerous epic funnel is a true victory for your players. It handily sets the tone for the start of an entire DCC campaign, and years later, it's still the standard by which all other funnels are measured. If you want a funnel that really shows what Dungeon Crawl Classics is all about, this is the one. My rating, 5 out of 5 peasant skulls. So those are all of the Dungeon Crawl Classics I've run or played in. And I know I've just scratched the surface. There are so many other funnels that I haven't experienced yet, but I plan to in the near future. And if you've never run a funnel before, I highly recommend trying one of these. They're all chaotic, hilarious, and they create some of the best character origin stories you'll see in an RPG. But if you've played a memorable funnel, one that I haven't covered here today, or you think that I should bump to the top of my playlist, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more Dungeon Crawl Classics content like this, make sure you click the like and subscribe button. It really helps the channel. Until next time, I'm JC, and just remember, funnels build character, mostly by killing the ones you didn't like, and some of the ones that you did.
Torches burn in the dungeon deep, rusty blades and bones that weep. 14 fools with rakes and knives. Only